Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Good afternoon.
Hello,
Hello. Yes, sir, you are audible. Loud and-
Raghavendra, can you respond?
Yes, sir.
We are unable to hear you. So sound better.
Sir, you are audible.
Can you ping, like if you are able to like listen? Yes, okay.
Okay, we can't hear you.
Actually, the problem is that we can't able to hear you.
Audible, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we can start.
Okay,
How
then
to get the responses?
yeah, so I guess maybe you can use the chat to ask questions.
See, like if you have any queries or questions, you can ask through the chat. We are unable to hear you. Okay, just ping in the chat.
Okay, if you can hear, just say yes or no, and then we'll continue.
Guys, can you respond now? Like, can you try to speak?
Yes, sir, you are audible now.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
okay,
yes,
nice.
thank you,
Now
thank
we
you.
switch to microphone. It's working.
Yeah,
So we'll start this session.
yeah, okay.
This is fine, right? Are we audible, both of us?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah,
we'll
okay, thank you. Like, okay, before starting this, like, whatever the speech session, so actually, we want to know, like, in your perspective, like, what do you mean by speech, actually? Yeah, I know that only three are there. Just try to answer. That's it. Like, we don't, like, even in Telugu also, it is fine, because only we three are there in the town. Yeah, you can start.
You can
Like,
answer
what do you mean by speech? Actually, what is speech? Ante. Even you can search in the internet also. Just try. Or else you can ping in the chat. No issues.
I guess come on, there are only like 10 people who chat. We can even ask by name, right?
No. We
No?
don't. No. Don't
Okay.
take that risk. Just by yourself. Like, please. You, if you want, like, you can answer. Like, what do you mean by speech? See, I can say speech is a like natural mode of communication. That thing I can say. Like, in your perspective, what do you mean by speech? How the human beings communicate?
Voice.
Hello. Okay. How the animals communicate with each other? Like, see, without communication, we can't say our feelings or opinions to others, right? There should be some mode of what we say communication, right? We are expressing, like, human beings are expressing their feelings, or like with the help of this speech thing. Animals, someone might be who are deaf and dumb, they will be using these signs, symbols as a medium of communication. And animals with their some sounds, like dogs barking, or else like monkeys shouting and all those things. So there should be some medium should be there. So for human beings, we are using our voice or a speech as a communication mode of communication. So actually, like, if I give an audio sample, like more or less whatever the audio we are recording, actually is that what does that audio contain? Can anyone explain? See, if I give an audio sample of my audio, see, now you are like using this YouTubes and all those things, right? So, for example, if I give that .mp3 file to you without any audio, like I asked you to like, what does it contain? Can you tell the summary? Like, can you guys like, how will you tell the summary of that audio? Hello? Am I audible? Hello? Yeah, just try. Like you can say in Telugu also, no issues. Okay, someone told the expression of the ability to express thoughts and feelings. Okay, what do you mean by speech? No issues. Then see, if I give an audio to you, I am asking what is the summary of that audio? Like, what will you like? What is the first step like you will do with that audio sample? First, you will listen, right? Yes or no? Just ping in the chat, no issues, because I need some response. Otherwise, I can't proceed further. Yes, thank you. See, like whenever I given any audio file, suppose if you want to know what is there in that audio file, first of all, you will listen that thing. So how does this machine do that thing? See, we are saying some main application of speech is like ASR building or TTS and all those things. Actually, for the first initial step, like how the machine will know what is there in that audio sample? Okay, I will put in another way. What does that system understanding language? What is the language which systems understand? Okay. What does the system understand? Low binary. Yeah, okay. Binary digits and all those things. Okay, what is this binary? Zeros and ones, right? Yeah, okay. More or less, you can say a low level machine assembly language thing. At the end, like at the last step, that is the thing. So how this audio sample is getting converted into that thing? We should know, right? Because like speech, we are saying that we are giving input as a speech and the machine is able to understand what we are speaking. But how does that machine able to decode what we are saying? Anyways, I can say that again, that speech data, audio sample.mp3 or .wav file will be again a number only. Okay, just okay, we are showing something, we are sharing our screen. Just like how to, like how the wave file will be represented. I think you might have seen this, but just make like for your understanding sake, we are opening this thing. Yes, like is the screen visible to you? Are you able to see our screen? Yes, okay, thank you.
One second.
Yeah. So like we are trying to just we are loading one audio file and we are trying to display how normally the audio file looks like. Yeah. Okay. Are you able to hear that audio sample? One stage. Okay. Yes or no? Just give us some response. No. Okay.
I think we should.
Sound. We need to share sound. Right? Okay.
The quick
Now?
brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
Can you give any response now? Like we have just on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. What is the audio is saying? Something like the quick brown fox jump under the right? So that is an audio sample. Actually, that we are having that audio sample. Like how to represent that thing in a basic way. Just like we are reading that audio sample and just we are displaying that audio sample. Okay. Intercept. Yeah, just we are like coding live session. More or less, you can use this thing. So, see, like in the first initial step, we are trying. In the sixth step, if you see, like initially we are just mounting our drive, then some basic Python libraries, like where like how we want to use that libraries to display the content of the image, and then we are giving some random Fox period audio file, and then here this in the sixth step, this is the main process. Just we are trying to read that audio file. Okay, just give some like response so that I can continue. Yeah, okay, thank you. So just like we are using SciPy library where we are reading this audio file. So like the output will be like FS and wave. Like we are using that. FS is like sampling frequency, and wave is your whatever the audio file is there. What like with the help of that library, we are reading that audio file. What is there in that content?
So
FS.
does anybody understand what sampling frequency means? FS stands for sampling frequency or sampling rate. Does anybody understands what you mean by sampling rate? So what is sampling rate then? Like what is the definition of sampling rate? Anyone? Does this a yes or no at least? If you don't know, we'll if you say no, then we'll continue. That's right. So the frequency of the sound, not really.
Yep.
It's not exactly frequency of the sound. Okay, then I'll ask you this question. So I'll play this audio.
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
What do you think the frequency of that audio file is? Just like some number. Or if you want to tell a range, tell a range. If you think it's a specific number, tell that specific number.
Actually, first of all, do you know that what do you mean by frequency here? See, we are saying some waves. Okay, continue.
Okay. So basically, we're just trying to establish the fact how does computer understand or how does computer deal with audio. Okay, so let's say in an image, image will be just a 2D matrix or a 3D matrix of numbers, right? So it's very easy to understand. Let's see how how a computer understands images, but we also need to figure out how a computer understands audio file. So can anybody explain how a computer understands an audio? Any speech audio. It doesn't need to be speech, but any audio file in general. How do you think computer stores it? Okay, so there is no response. So if you see here, all we are trying to load the audio file and the sampling rate. I'll explain what sampling rate is later. But you can see it, we're just loading the audio file. Audio file here is the string. So this is just the path to the audio file. And the dot wave audio file is not your MP3 audio or your FLAC audio. It's just dot wave is one sort of way of storing your audio files. So we are opening that audio file, and basically your code now has the audio file. So normally when you load an image, you're saving your code understands that image as a matrix, right? X into Y into 3, for example. In this case, now I just said we loaded an audio file, right? So how do you think this audio file looks like? So here we printed this, it. We directly got fs comma wave when you loaded the audio file, and then we printed each of these values. So the first thing is the wave itself. You can see the wave is just a list, an array of values, a lot of numbers, and basically there are 57,300 such numbers. So all of these numbers together form this audio file that we just heard. So this
The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog.
is nothing but 57,300 values of numbers. Those many numbers together form that audio file. So now we want to understand how are they related. Like how does one number, a bunch of numbers, actually make up a sound? Can anybody explain that? Like, does anybody know how a bunch of numbers make up sound? Quick yes or no, because we don't have much time. Just yes or no. We just have half an hour.
You can just think.
Yes, no, something. No. Okay. So you don't know how numbers are used to represent sound. Okay. So before that, we'll talk a little bit of signal processing. So when I say signal processing, everybody knows how a sine wave looks like, right? So let's just plot some data. Okay, so this is a sine wave. Everybody knows what a sine wave is, right?
Just give some response. Yeah. Okay.
So what is the frequency of this sine wave? Anybody can tell what the frequency of the sine wave is? Okay, so no answers. Nobody knows what the frequency of this sine wave is. No. Okay, so one minute. Okay, what is the definition of frequency? Anybody knows what is the definition of frequency? Then from there we'll understand how do we calculate frequency.
Like you can say use the basic physics terms. Like what do you mean by frequency and time? What is the relation between time and frequency also?
Just define what is frequency. Guys, by the way, this is a very important topic. If you want to do anything in speech, you need to understand how computers understand audio, right? So we're trying to explain how computers understand audio. How do we even how does machine learning work with respect to audio? So all of that is very, if you want to do anything in speech, then you need to understand what speech is, right? So try to answer the question. So yeah, somebody said number of waves that pass at fixed time. Okay, so the more clear definition of what he said is number of times a wave passes through one single point in 1 second. So basically, it's like you can also basically say in 1 second how many waves are there. That is nothing but frequency. Okay, so in this case, since there is no concept of time, we just plotted a sine graph, right? It's not really easy to define the frequency here. So we first need to assume some amount of time. So let's assume whatever you see on the screen is 1 second. Let's just assume that. So now how many waves are there on the screen? Like how many waves are there? Anybody can answer that? Do you know what one wave means?
Yeah.
First answer, how many waves are there on the screen? 3 waves. So let's count once. So from, you can see the cursor, right? So from this point to this point, it's one wave. From this point to this point, one more wave. And from this point to this point, it's one more wave. So you're right. 3 is the answer. Lohit, do you understand why it is 3, or do you want me to show, like, I can draw it? Do you want me to show?
Like you can say example for example.
Yeah, basically, so one wave is basically made of one low and one high, like one bottom peak and one top peak. Together, they form one wave. Okay, yeah, one up and one down, exactly.
Yeah.
So you can say it, one up, one down, one wave, one up, one down, one wave, and one up, one down, one wave. That way, we have 3 waves. Everybody understands that? Okay, good. So now, if you assume this, we are only looking at 1 second. What is the frequency now? You know, it's 1 second. You know, it's 3 waves, right? So what is the frequency? Use the definition of frequency and tell what is the value of frequency now?
Okay. Just tell me.
Okay, fine. So I'll explain. So what is frequency? Frequency is the number of waves per second. So how many waves are there in this 1 second? We said 3 waves are there. So the frequency becomes, frequency is nothing but 3. That's it.
3.
It's just 3. So it is same for every sound? No. So I can change, right? So frequency, again, you really can't say sound because right now we're only looking at a signal. There's a difference between a signal and a sound. So this is some signal.
Okay, it doesn't mean that like for every audio file, for every second you will be getting 3 waves. Okay,
So wait,
it will be different.
So I'll just change something. So post or something. And now look how many
Okay.
waves are there. There are a lot of waves, right? And we can still assume this is 1 second. Now the frequency is different. Okay. So, but we need to have a concept of how long it is. Otherwise, there is no meaning of frequency. But we're assuming it is 1 second and then saying that since there are 3 waves in 1 second, the frequency is 3 hertz. Everybody understood till now? Okay, cool. Now this is, somebody said frequency of an audio is sampling rate. This is not exactly correct because sampling rate is a concept that we use in order to store this data on the computer. Okay, so in a wave, okay, not in a wave, let's say in an equation, y equal to mx plus c, how many data, how many points are there on this line? Give me a number. How many points are there on the line y equal to mx plus c? Some number.
Suppose x is equal to like 10 or 15 points. Can you tell us like how many points is there?
Can somebody answer?
Yeah, for example, like you are having that x values of 15 or 20, like how many number of values will be there?
Okay, so let's say now you can see the everybody can see the screen right? Again because I don't know if people are listening. Just type yes. Can you see the sine wave on the screen? Yeah. Okay. So how many points? How many points does if you want to store the sine wave in the computer, how do we store a sine wave in the computer? Well, basically the answer I'm looking for is it's a continuous flow of data, right? Basically, a sine wave, it is in theory. There's no real life meaning to it. So if it is in theory, it means in mathematics, you can zoom in how much ever you want and there will be still data to look at, right? So basically all I'm trying to say is if you just say one sine wave, how many data points are there? There are practically infinite amount of data points on it. So a computer can't store infinite amount of data, right? We can only store few amount of data and try to interpolate that to a full sine wave. So if you see here, that is exactly what we are trying to do here also. Here we are not defining. One thing. So what is happening? I'll just show. So since I used a function called plot, it looks continuous to you, but this is how the data actually looks like. Okay. Okay, so it's lot of data. Reduce the amount of data. We'll see what's happening. Okay, now you see those red points, right? Everybody can see those red points. Okay. Nice. So that is how the computer is storing this data. It is not storing every single point on the sine curve because that is obviously impossible to do. We're only storing discretely. So you are storing at every little interval. You will say after every 0.2, 0.3, we sample a point on the sine curve and store it. So if you have enough of these points, you can define a sine curve. Everybody understood what I'm trying to say till now? So once more, okay. So all I'm saying to say is you have y equal to sine x. Okay, that is what this is. Y equal to sine x is there. So we can't. And I want to say I want to store this equation on the computer. Y equal to sine x. I want to store. How can you store? Normally, y equal to sin x means for every single point on the number line, for every single x on the number line, you have a value of y. Together, all of this, if you remember what locus and loci is, what is it? You take a bunch of points of x, you apply to an equation, you get a bunch of points of y, the equivalent points, and together they form a curve. So if it is y equal to mx plus c, then if you have enough x comma y coordinates, basically it's infinite number of points here. But if you combine all of those points together, then you get a line. Similarly, for every single x on the number line, if you calculate sine x of that value, you get the corresponding y's, right? So together, all of this x and y's together form the sine x equation. Okay, but I can't store all of them online. I can't store all of them on a computer because how many points are there on the number line? Infinite number of points are there on the number line. You can't say on the number line there are 10 points or 20 points. It's a real number line. In a real number, it's simple question like this: how many numbers are there between 0 to 1? Infinite points, right? You can say 0.01, 0.001, 0.00001, so on. There are infinite points on a number line. So you can't obviously store all of them. So all we're trying to do is you're storing few points. Let's say I'm storing 30 points, and I'm calculating the corresponding y of those 30 points on the number line. And together, these x comma y forms the sine curve. Okay, so if I remove this part, if I don't plot the red lines, if I only plot the blue lines, you can't even tell whether it's discrete or continuous because you have enough data to, not enough data, but good enough data to define a sine curve. Okay, so now, understood, all right? So now we will explain the concept of sampling rate. Okay, so let's say you have a sine curve. All we're trying to do is, I'll show this. If I'll print the values of x. Somebody has a question?
That's the one. Same thing.
Okay, now we have changed the way we are formatting it. Okay, so now I'll repeat the concept. So we said y equal to sin x is infinite number of points. So we need to figure out, we need to select just a few points in order to store it online, store it on your computer. So how do we decide which x points to choose, which points on the sine curve you want to choose? Anybody can tell. Here I randomly chose 30 points between -10 to 10. And for all of these 30 points, I calculated the sine x value. And together this x comma y coordinates are representing my y equal to sine x graph. Okay. Now which are perpendicular which are perpendicular will you mark them? Yeah, exactly. So wherever this perpendicular line is there, for those values only, we're actually calculating the sin x value, right? You can see on the graph. So the intersection between the vertical line and the actual sine graph are the points you're storing. I'm waiting for a yes or no. Just tell yes or no, and then I understood. Okay. So now my question is, how do you decide the spacing between these points we're selecting? The whole point is we don't want to make them infinite number of points. So we have to, if you want to make it discrete, there should be some space between how many points you're choosing on the number line, right? So anybody has any idea what is the distance between two consecutive x points that you should take so that you have a decent amount of data? Anybody? Yes or no? Something? Because no. Okay, so you don't know how to select this distance. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Okay, I'm sorry. Am I audible? Can you just like message me? Someone? Yes, there are 14 people in the meeting. At least one person respond, please. Okay, so thank you. Okay, now I'll remove the sign curve. Okay, so now in your mind, this is how a sine y equal to sine x looks like, right? So how does it look in the mind of a computer? A computer doesn't see continuously. That's what I'm trying to tell. If it's a continuous graph, there are infinite points in it. A computer doesn't see infinite points. It can only look at finite number of points. So we are sampling it from y equal to sine x. When I say sampling it, we are choosing some points on this sine curve and storing them. So now, does this sine curve look like the sine curve we saw before? Some answer, please. Does this still look like the sine curve we saw before? Yes or no? Fast, fast, fast. Simple question. Do these points still look like the sine curve before?
Yeah. Can anyone? See, what is the difference between the previous graph and this graph?
Like, does it still look like the same graph?
Yeah. Can you spot any differences?
So this is the original sine curve that you saw, and now these are the points that we are storing. Do they look same? Yes. Thank you.
you.
Okay. Now I'll do something. Sample. So let's say we are choosing 50 points instead of 30 points. So basically, we're taking 50 points of the sine curve, which still looks like that, right? And now I'll just see what happens if I slowly reduce the number of points you're taking. 40, it still looks like it. If it's 30, it still looks like it. I take 20 points and it still looks like it. Now let's say 10 points and you understand the ratio. 51, 1 second. Okay, now does it still look like the sine graph we saw before? No, right? So I'll plot it. It doesn't look like a sine graph anymore. So obviously, if you go low and low and low, you lose the data, right? It doesn't really represent a sine graph anymore. I'll slowly increase the data. We'll see how it looks. 15, yeah, I mean, it's good, but not good enough. 20. Okay, now it again looks good, but if we go back to 10 points, for example, it doesn't really look like a sine graph. So basically,
Okay, I have a question. See, actually, what is the differences between you? Like, he's showing some number and all those things, right? What does that number difference is? Like, what does that number infer? Differences in number. Data. So actually, data, not data. Then try. Just think about it. Like the author is trying, like now but he's trying to say something, but what is that? Like, what does the data points infer actually? So he showed with 100 points, then he came up to 50 points, then he came up to 10. Like, what is the differences you have seen? For that, like, Can anyone? Actually, do you guys understand like what he's trying to say? Just say yes or no. That's it. Like we can continue. Change in graph point. Yes. Okay. See, like first he showed you that this with the help of this within that 1 second, he has shown that sine wave. Then he has changing graph point. Yeah, okay. No issues. With that within that 1 second, he has drawn you some sine wave. Then he plotted with that of 100 points. Then he plotted with 50 points. Then he plotted with last like 10 points. Sorry. So here he wants to try to convey is that like he told right frequency sampling rate. So within that 1 second, he told he has drawn some perpendicular lines, right? So within that each segment, how many number of points you are combining and taking at a single point? Okay. If you are trying to say that, like for the entire 1 second, whenever he shown you that 100 points, within that up to 1 second, there are 100 points in between them, and that is like more or less you can say that 100 frequency rate. Then he just half like he made it into half and he made 50 points. Then you can see with that 50 points. Then he made it into 25 and 10. So the whatever he's showing is that only, but the differences in the point. See, I'm saying that like .mp3 files are there, .wave files are there, but someone with some audio files, like you can like record your own audio and you can see the properties of that audio file. You will be seeing some 44 kilohertz, 10 kilohertz, sorry, 22 kilohertz and 16 kilohertz and 8 kilohertz. What does that these kilohertz and all those values are? That is sampling rate. Okay, that sampling rate refers to that within that specific segment, how many number of samples you are accommodating or combining and making at a single thing.
Okay, so I'll explain once more.
Yep.
So in all the 4 cases that we took, 100 points in 1 second, 50 points in 1 second, and 10 points in 1 second, what is the frequency of the say sine wave? It is still 3, right? We're not given data given 10, then 10 points shown in graph.
No, the entire sine audio we are plotting with the 10 points. That's it.
Okay,
We are
fine.
making it representing as 10, not that for 10 points we are giving that.
Okay, fine. So I'll just show both of these examples.
Yeah.
So one is the same sine wave, we are taking 30 samples. So you understand the concept of sample, right? Because your computer can't store everything. We are basically marking one point on the sine graph, y equal to sine x. We are marking one point and storing that. And that is what this red points indicate. We are marking that point on the sine and we are storing that as x comma y. Okay, in these both cases, you can see that these are the points we marked on the sine graph. In both the cases, the frequency of the sine wave is still same. The sine wave is still same. It's just that the number of points you are choosing to save are different. The frequency of the wave doesn't change. Why are we changing points? Oh yeah, frequency of the wave doesn't change. That is not the point. So all I'm trying to say is, given 2 waves, you can store the same wave in 2 different ways. One is using 30 points, the other is using 20 points. Okay. I'll come to the point why we are like changing the number of points. But
Do the example of same image compressed image.
okay, so in both the cases, you know that the sine wave frequency is 3. Does everybody understand that? The sine wave is still same, right? In both the graphs. It's just that the number of red points are different. But the sine wave is same. Yes or no? First. Yeah, it is same. So it is what the frequency is 3. That is the frequency of the wave. But the number of points you're using to represent this sine wave for the computer to store is different. In the first case, it's 30 points. In the second case, it's 20 points. That is called the sampling rate or sampling frequency. Why? Because we are selecting anyway, we are saying this is 1 second, right? So basically, sampling rate definition is the number of samples per second. Here, we assumed the entire sine wave is in 1 second. So on the image on the top, we are using 30 points. So it becomes 30 points per second or sampling frequency of 30. And then below, we're using 20 points to represent 1 second of the sine wave. So the sampling frequency becomes 20 samples, 20 frequency, 20 hertz. So everybody understands this point. The above sine wave is 3 hertz sine wave, but the sampling rate is 30. The below sine wave is still 3 hertz sine wave, but the sampling rate is 20 hertz. I need a yes or no. Okay, so I got a yes. I'll continue. So that is the difference between both of these sine waves. And that is what the definition of sampling rate is. Given a sine wave or given some wave, it doesn't need to be a sine wave, but given some wave, how many points are you using on this wave on this signal per second in order to store them in a computer? That is the definition of sampling rate, right? Okay, so there is a theorem called Nyquist theorem that basically this is what's happening in Nyquist theorem. Okay. When we're using 10 points, what's happening? So if you can see that these points don't really look like the original sine wave that we had. Hello, I need some response. Yes, right. Okay, so to make it even clear, I'll do something. So, okay, so basically, I'm originally plotting the actual sine wave. So actual sine wave will be in green, and the blue sine wave that you see is what the computer looks at, because if you decrease the number of points, it doesn't look like the sine wave anymore, right? So basically, the blue line you will see now is by joining all the red points that you have stored. That is the blue line the computer sees, and I'll also plot the actual sine wave it should have stored. Okay, now I'd say it's very easily audible. Okay, clear. So here you can see whatever the computer stores and whatever the real sine wave is very same. That's why you can't even see the difference between the green and the blue line. Here also it's same because you can see a small deviation here. You can see the green coming out a little bit there. But if you keep the sampling rate as 10, it is very obvious. The green line is the actual sine wave, but the blue line that you see here, it's all very weird, right? That is what the computer is saying. So if you decrease the number of points to a certain extent, it doesn't look like the original data anymore. So I will take one more case and then we'll stop with this part. We'll just take 5 samples now, very, very low frequency, 5 samples per second. And look, how does this look like now? It is not at all anywhere close to the original green sine wave, right? The blue wave is not at all clear to close to the green wave. Everybody understands this much? Yes or no, fast? Okay, so this is the issue with sampling rate. Sampling rate, as I said, is the number of red points you choose per second on the green wave is the sampling rate. But if the sampling rate becomes too low, then your data doesn't look like the original data at all. All right, so here see, you can see that here the blue line and the green line are very far away. So the sampling rate is not good enough. So you increase the sampling rate a little bit. Now it becomes a little better. If you increase the number of points, it becomes a little better because your blue line is close to the green, but it's not good enough. You increase the number of points, it becomes pretty good, and you increase more and becomes really, really, really good. So this transition between really bad and really good, there is a threshold that is called the Nyquist threshold. So I won't go into the details, but basically for every single wave, every single sine wave or periodic wave, Nyquist theorem states that if you choose below these number of points, your data that you store won't be accurate. You have to have these many minimum number of points if your computer should actually know what you wanted to store. Up till here, it looks correct. But for this image and this image, it doesn't really look correct, right? So basically, these two graphs are below the Nyquist sampling rate, and these above two graphs are above the Nyquist sampling rate. So all we are trying to do is the sampling rate that we have should be above the Nyquist sampling rate. So everybody understood the concept of what sampling rate is and actually what is the frequency of wave? Yes, no? Okay. So now we'll go back to the audio file that we had before. So we have fs comma wave. That is what we loaded, or that is what your audio literally is. And we even printed what this audio looks like. It's just a bunch of numbers. It's 57,000 numbers. But there's also this sampling rate of 24,000. Now, do you understand what 24,000 means? It means there is some wave, but you're using only 24,000 points per second in order to store this wave. That's how your computer is storing. And that is why when wave.shape is nothing but 57,000. Okay. So we'll do some math here. What is the what is the count of numbers we have? It's 57,300 numbers, right? And we also know the sampling rate is 24,000. So can anybody tell me what is the length of this audio file? Simple math. I mean, I already wrote the answer, but can you tell? Total number of points are 57,000 points, and the number of points per second is 24,000 points. That is the sampling rate. So what is the length of the audio? Not 0.02, but I think, yeah, I mean, you're close enough. Yeah, 2 points. I mean, I already wrote the answer, but it's fine. The way you do it is 57,300. That is the number of samples, total number of samples. And what is number of samples per second? 24,000. And hence you get 2.3875. That is the length of your audio. And you can see here, right? It is showing 2 seconds only. So that's how it relates to. It's not 48,000 also. Did you understand what we did? Total samples are 57,000 samples, and number of samples per second is 24,000 samples. So you just divide both of them and you get 2.3875. Everybody understood till now? Okay. Now the next question is, this is when we plotted, okay, when we plotted this wave file, when we're trying to visualize the wave file, this is how it looks. But does this look like a sine wave or any other waves that we spoke about till now? Does it look like it? Yeah, yes or no? Fast? No, right? It doesn't look like the sine wave. But if you zoom in a lot, let's say, so I'm zooming in a lot, I'll zoom in a lot, and you can see, to zoom in more. We'll select some other part of the segment. Okay, now you can see it. This is some periodic wave. Okay, can you see that it is a periodic wave? When I say periodic wave, it is repeating. You can see it from this point to this point, it is one wave. From this point to one more point, it is another wave. So if you zoom in into your audio file, if you zoom into that audio file and plot it, it actually looks like a periodic wave. So when we discussed about sine wave here, all of these rules apply to general periodic waves. It's not just sine wave. Sine wave is one example of a periodic wave, but for every single periodic wave, this rules apply. And this is a periodic wave, as you can see. Hence, for this, that is why we need to. That is why we have a definition of a sampling rate and all of that. We're able to store all of this as some samples in the computer, and hence 24,000 is the sampling rate, and 2.3875 is the number of seconds that we are storing. Is the length of the audio. And if you zoom in, it looks like a periodic wave, not a sine wave. Everybody understood till now? Yes or no? Okay, cool. So it's already 2 o'clock. We'll so end the session. One last thing.
Yeah, as an initial task today, let's try to download Wave Surfer. Type this thing. Wave Surfer or Audacity in your systems. And like just now we have like he has shown you some periodic wave of sine wave and all those things. Right? Just try to record your audio and try to load that audio into this Audacity and Wave Surfer and zoom your audio. Then you will come to know like what he's trying to say, that periodicity or sine waves. So just try to install this Wave Surfer or Audacity. They are like open source. You can even like if you search in the Google, you can get that. Okay, because like more or less, if you want to work on the speech thing, you need to install these two. Either one of them is fine. Okay, someone told that she's already home. Just ma'am, can you try to share? Sorry, Teja. Yeah, share your screen and just try to record as some audio so that like from here itself we can ask, like show you the how, like, just zoom it. Oh, sorry, it's already 2. Okay, no issues. We'll see tomorrow. No issues, no problem. Is it okay? Because next session, like for IoT guys, it starts at 2 o'clock. Okay, we'll see tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Like just try to install this Audacity and Wave Surfer. Like either of it, any of them, both of them, or any of them is fine. So just try to record your audio. Okay, record your audio and just load that audio in either Wave Surfer or Audacity and just try to zoom it. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Thanks for attending the session. We'll meet tomorrow.